how's it going, everybody? I want to ask a simple question because this is something that I had a conversation with an old friend of mine a while ago. She turned into what she calls a liberal socialist, which is a four-dimensional oxymoron. What's the difference between fascism and socialism? Really, what is it? And seeing as how I'm talking to nobody at this point, I'll answer the question. There is no difference between fascism and socialism. They're pretty much exactly the same thing. Now you might say that fascism is repressive and oppressive, and socialism is free and stuff, as somebody who I guess claims to be a liberal socialist would call it. But socialism, at least as Karl Marx describes it, and I said this before, socialism is the opposite of freedom. Equality is the opposite of freedom. And so both of them are oppressive. Both of them oppress a certain group of people who doesn't want to be in that group of people. Dostoevsky wrote in The Underground Man, he says that if there was this crystal castle or this glass castle that was perfect, all your needs were met, that all you had to do for your entire life was to eat cakes and busy yourself with the reproduction of the human race, that you'll go mad and you'll want to break it down. And the issue with that logic is there might be a little, like a small amount of people that actually wants that sort of thing, although I don't think that they would want it for very long. I've thought about, like, heaven, for instance, and every time I think about heaven as some place where you do one thing for all eternity, like play a harp on a cloud or something along those lines, I think it gets really boring, just in my mind. And it's the same thing with this perfect glass castle. It gets boring. You go mad, and you want to tear it down. In the end, The Underground Man, he says that even if everything could be accounted for, even your ideas of innovation and wanting to try something new, and that could be provided for, as long as you knew that it was being provided for from some sort of strange mathematical equation, that you'll go mad and tear it down just because you don't want to, because you want to demonstrate that you're a man and not a piano, and you'd have to read the full thing in order to understand that reference. But read it; it's a good book. But the point is, if there's any single person, just one person, who is thrown into paradise on earth, heaven on earth, where everything is perfect and provided for, but they're the type of person who is open, who wants to see new things, then they're going to hate it. And if one person hates paradise, is it really paradise? You can say, well, it's paradise for everyone else, and okay, but if you're going to be throwing every single person in there, then there's going to be a large proportion of those people that hate it. They're going to want to leave. They're going to want to break it down. Now, the next question would be, why don't they just leave? And the issue with that is typically socialism wants to expand indefinitely. That was part of the whole reason of the Cold War. Is it was a war between capitalism and socialism, or free markets and socialism, and the communist regime of the Soviet Union wanted to expand indefinitely. It wanted to take over the world. And you think, well, that's kind of silly, because that's sort of what our comic book villains were trying to do, take over the world. That's what the Brain, out of Binky and the Brain, he was trying to do, what are we going to do today, Brain? We're going to try to take over the world. And, it sounds silly, but that's really what they were trying to do, is spread communism throughout the entire world. And the reason for that is because it's required. communism is really a very bad system. Socialism is a very bad system. And it's not an ideal system. You can't just choose to go from a communist regime to a non-communist regime because, well, they need to, if you had that power, everyone would do it. Almost nobody would want to stay within the communist regime, the repressive regime. And so if that happened, then it would contract the empire so much that there would practically be no empire. People are leaving Cuba daily, and they were attempting to leave the Soviet Union daily as well. Thousands of people a day. And so it's oppressive. Just like fascism was oppressive. Now, what about, okay, so they're the same in that regard, and, if you want to argue with that, then fine, be my guest, and I'm pretty sure I'll win, though. But, okay, so let's try another angle. Fascism is racist. Socialism is not racist, right? Well, no, actually. Socialism, in every place that it's tried, is racist. Every single place. In every single place, what happens is it targets the families and the races of the minority ruling class. You think, well, that's a good thing. Why would you want to target the minority non-ruling class or the lower income, poverty-stricken minorities? Which is what a lot of people think socialism does. It lifts people up from poverty, or more likely tears people down from non-poverty. And so, okay, let's say that's true. What was fascism? It was a fight against the minority ruling class, the Jews. That was the whole point of Hitler's speeches. He would always say, we need to take down the Jews. They have control over our economy. They have control over our banks. They have control over all of our industries. And they have corrupted it by taking money through the war machines. It's their fault that Germany lost World War I. That was the whole argument. Hitler was saying that the oppressed Germans are being oppressed by the Jews, the wealthy minority elite of his day. So, socialism says the same thing. In every place that it's implemented, socialism says we need to get rid of the minority ruling class, do whatever we want with them, normally kill them and rape them and throw them in a concentration camp, etc. All that sort of stuff. Very similar to what Hitler did. We need to get rid of that minority ruling class in order to equalize everything. What's the difference between the two? You say, well, Jewish people are a minority. Yeah, that's true. They were, according to Hitler, a minority ruling class. So what are you going to do now? Say we're going to get rid of the majority ruling class? So I guess whites versus blacks, you're going to say we have to get rid of all the whites? Or oppress them so that you can equalize the weights or something? Well, here's how that will work. What's going to happen is you're going to start oppressing the white ruling class. And the higher economic, the white people who are in the higher socioeconomic places are going to leave. You're going to say, well, we're going to stop them. Yeah, right. Good luck on that. They're just going to leave. And there's not really going to be much effect on them, except they're going to be displaced. And then the middle class white people, they're just also going to leave. And you say, well, we can stop those guys. No. Good luck with that. You might get a minority of them. But the biggest people who are going to be affected by any sort of socialist regime in America would be the upper to middle class black people. And you think, why? We're not going to be targeting them. I'm sorry, but you already have. These riots, these last 6 months, where were they? In the suburbs? Mostly in the urban areas. They were mostly where minority-owned businesses were. And the majority of the damage was to minority-owned businesses. So you've already oppressed those guys. This whole, these repeated Kristallnachts were against minority, middle to upper class people. Now, you might say, well, they're going to leave then, just like the white upper class people. Yeah, and they probably will. There probably will be a large amount of upper class black people that will, and that'll be good for them. But there are going to be a lot that are going to feel safe. You know, Black Lives Matter, right? So I'm black, so I'm just a black middle class person. I was in poverty, and now I built myself up to at least be middle class. So I'll be safe, and I'll be able to stay. It's not going to work like that, because they're gonna come for you. The socialists, that's what they're gonna do. And you might say, well, the socialists are working for the minority people who are in poverty. Yeah, the minority people who are in poverty. If you've worked your way to the middle class, that means once all the upper class people leave, you're at the top. And they'll come for you. So I'd recommend getting out as quickly as possible if you can. The issue with what a lot of these businesses are brick and mortar businesses, so you can't just leave because your assets are not liquid. So there's an issue with that. Most of the, let's say, upper class white people might have like a construction business that at least crosses state lines. They can just go to another state, or they can liquidate everything as quickly as possible and get the hell out of there. But if you think that you're a socialist and you're working for social justice and you're going to be working for the cause of minority groups, well, you're wrong. Inevitably, you will work for the cause of not those guys. You're going to push them down, and you're going to keep them down. So yeah, anybody who is there in the middle class, they should get out. Now you might think as a somebody who's a socialist, as a true believer, then at the very least, people who believe in socialism are going to be spared. That's never how it works, though. You see, when you talk about when you're trying to implement a utopia where the necessity for the utopia to work is that every single person does their part, that is part of the definition of socialism, is every person does their part, from each according to his need, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. That means everybody who has ability has to produce. All it takes for that system to go away is one cynic. One person who wants to take advantage of the system. One person who's smart enough to and has enough oratory skills to trick you. You see, that's what happens every single time. Stalin pretended to be a true believer. He never was. Lenin, he never was either. All these other socialist dictators, they pretended to be true revolutionaries, but they never were. And all the people who were true believers, they fell right in line. And then at some point, they realized that their new utopia was worse than it was before, and they started voicing their concerns. And what happened to them? Well, they were put in the same camps as the political prisoners. The same camps where the political prisoners were subservient to the criminal prisoners. And there was no distinction. In other words, if you're a socialist and you're a true believer in socialism right now, and the socialist revolution does come, and all of the Republicans are put into the re-education camps or the work camps or whatever, the one cynic and the one cynical party that takes over and begins the ruling class is going to come after you. I'm sorry. And then you'll be working right next to me. I'll be in there. I'll be shoveling dirt if I'm not killed by that point. And then you're gonna be right next to me, and you're gonna be very confused about why you're there. And you say, "Well, I believed in what. This must be a mistake. I believed in this. It must be a mistake. How can this be not working?" And the rest of us are going to, we're going to feel very sorry for you, because it's a very bad thing. It's a very distressing thing when your entire worldview is overthrown. So, good luck on all of that. So they say, we say typically on the right, we say socialism never works because every time it's tried, it doesn't work. And then the rebuttal is typically, well, socialism's never been tried. True socialism's never been tried. And what we say to that is, okay, trying socialism never works. Bye.